Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon, and welcome to today's discussion about the craftsperson approach to academic research. This is a little bit of the answer to the question, why do we do this? Why does it matter? And it is perhaps a selfish answer to that question, but for me it's an honest answer to that question. Okay, and so this is my approach. This is my view, and what I hope is that some of yourselves will recognize yourself in this and said yeah, I mean that's me. I've never thought about myself and my research that way, and perhaps this can provide some clarity to your path. And others will say that this is completely not them, that they don't want to be what I am, a craftsperson, and they want to be something else, and that's also good. It's interesting in the sense that you know what you don't want. We get to speak about my hero again today, which is Sherlock Holmes. And Sherlock Holmes is the epitome of the craftsperson approach to work. And I want to contrast it with what we see in academia, but not only, with the Hercule Poirot approach to work, where for Hercule Poirot, it was really important to be famous, to be well known, to be part of the high circles of society at his time, whereas for Sherlock Holmes was not. And I want to quickly, before I discuss with you what this approach means for academia, I want to quickly share a quote from The Adventure of Black Peter, which is a story of Sherlock Holmes, that has a passage that I think beautifully illustrates this craftsperson approach to one's career. Conan Doyle writes, Holmes, however, like all great artists, lived for his art's sake. I would say more craft than art, but okay. He frequently refused his help to the powerful and wealthy, where the problem made no appeal to his sympathies, while he would devote weeks of most intense application to the affairs of some humble client whose case presented those strange and dramatic qualities which appealed to his imagination and challenged his ingenuity. Sherlock Holmes never wanted to appear in his cases. The credit, he always allowed the official police force to take credit for his successes, whereas Hercule Poirot really worried about credit, about fame and reputation. So what does this mean? This approach. What does this mean for academic writing, for choosing projects, for how you pursue academia? Overall, the way I feel. And this may be because I'm older, but I don't feel that papers contribute to society more broadly. But it's like art. I mean, what's the contribution of art? It is an expression of what makes us human. It is worthy to fund arts and pure research, because that is what humanity is all about. Art and research don't have to be useful. They just have to be expressions of what humanity can achieve, right? So we talked about in another video how to make your research relevant, and the TLDR is not by writing papers differently, right? It's by doing something else. And you can check that video if you want to. So when you see yourself as a craftsperson, then the reason you write papers is because papers are an instance of skill expression, of how much of a challenge can you pull off, right? So it's this, it's almost like, why do people play Dark Souls, right? It's super punishing game. You play Dark Souls because it is, in gaming, one of the most supreme forms of skill expression for gamers, right? It is a game that you play not because it has a beautiful story, not because of the art, but because it allows you to express your skill as a gamer at the highest level possible. And definitely, that is the reason why I try to publish in top journals, because it is very difficult, because the reviews that you get are extremely challenging. And therefore, if you are able to pull through a paper in a top journal, then you have shown skill. And much like Sherlock Holmes, the idea is not shown skill to others, but show skill to yourself. You can do it. You can pull it off. You braved this challenge. You braved the boss in Dark Souls. Or what's the name of the other game? There's a game that is also horrible. Jesus, I forget. Anyway, my son loves to play it. I'll remember. So skill expression. It is not about recognition. It is not about citations. Zero. It is about skill expression. And I want to tell you a story, a personal story. And those of you who know me, and if you don't, you can search my entire social media. You know that I never, ever, ever, ever brag about anything. I don't announce paper publications. I do not announce awards. Zero. So I want to share this story with you to convey the meaning of what craftsman what a craft is, and being devoted to a craft is, rather than to humble brag. Okay, I have a paper on AMR that I wrote the first draft and got us a revise and resubmit. But then my co-authors decided to pick this paper up, and I had very little to do with the subsequent rounds. And so to this day, I don't feel that I have published in AMR. My name is there. It's in the paper, in the list of authors. It's my idea. I wrote the first draft on my own, but the publishing a paper is not writing the first draft. The first draft is the beginning of the conversation. And I did not carry out that conversation with reviewers. And so for me, it doesn't count. It is on my CV, but it is not in my list of papers. I have no pride on that paper, because that is not an expression of my skill. It is not a piece of my craft. And I love writing with other people. And there are papers that I'm proud of publishing that I've written with other people, but this is not one. And that's what a craftsperson approach to research means. That you do not feel ownership of a piece where you contributed, but that you did not craft. And that means that, there are some papers that I just will not do because they are not expressions of craft, of the level that I think I have achieved to this day. Literature reviews are an example. It was my first paper, was a literature review. It's still my most cited paper. But literature reviews for me are mechanicals. It's about execution. And they are for people, they're either for people that are beginning to learn. It was very useful for me as a first step, or for people that do not see their job as a craft, because it is not a literature review is not an expression of skill. Now, you can review the literature to write a theory piece, and then, for sure, I read this beautiful piece by one of the viewers of the channel, which was, essential literature review, but it was a very skillful crafts. It's horrible. The word craft is, you call it craftsmanship, but it's a gendered word over so it's hard for me to express myself. But but it was a beautiful expression of skill. This paper. Okay. So that's the first thing, right? If you see yourself as a craftsperson, as an academic, you write papers as a form of skill expression. And I tell you that one of the most fulfilling moments in my academic career was getting a revise and resubmit decision on the most difficult revise and resubmit letters that I've ever gotten from a top journal. The paper was rejected on the third round. But, in the first round I have extremely high risk R&R in all caps on the letter, and I pulled the paper through that. I'm proud of that. Obviously, I prefer the paper to be published, but I'm proud of that because, again, it is an expression of skill, of great skill when challenged. You are playing Dark Souls, not Super Mario Brothers. Second, a craftsperson understands the value of the basics. A craftsperson approach to academic research is not just publishing in top journals. It is also mastering the basics and publishing in smaller journals that allow you to focus on a specific part of your craft. In a top journal, everything needs to be right. The theory, the data, everything. But sometimes you have this really cool data set, but it's not enough, and it's suggestive, not conclusive. And you can publish that in smaller journals. Okay? And for me, that's, that really is about focusing on the mastery of basics. So focusing on the mastery of presenting a data set, a qualitative data set. That is not enough. That's very difficult to, pick up a small set of interviews and put them in a well-crafted, a well-written qualitative piece. That's difficult. Now, in a paper like that, you're not really, working on theory and so on, because your data doesn't allow you to do that. So you're really focusing on the basic. And for me, this is also a lesson on humility, on understanding that even after you publish, I published 2 papers in the Mass Quarterly, right? I published a paper in Neuroscience. Even after you have achieved that, and you know that it is your work, that you did it, okay? It's not because of senior, it's you did it. Even then, you are humble enough to know that there is room, a lot of room in the basics. And take pleasure of exercising, applying your basics, developing your basics. And I learned this lesson in humility from a craftsperson as well. He was the highest ranked master in Taekwondo, in the school of Taekwondo that I follow. There are 3 in the world, and I follow 1. And this master came to visit us when I was in Portugal. And this is a person that has been training for decades. decades. And he didn't show us anything fancy. He showed us the white belt form, the simplest sequence and smallest sequence of movements that students learn, and you learn them with your white belt. And this is what he did for us, the students that were looking forward to meet the master, the highest ranked master in their discipline of choice. I've been doing Taekwondo for 5 years when I met the Grandmaster. And he does the most basic form. But he does it with a level of mastery that even if you are talented, you know that it will take you decades to reach. Decades. And you could see it. Perhaps because you're also a student. Perhaps somebody who had never studied martial arts could not appreciate the difference between what they were doing and what somebody else, a black belt but with 20 years less worth of training, could do. But the basics, there is always room in the basics. And there's room not only for learning, but to express mastery of a skill. Third part, it's about mastering all of the aspects of the craft. For me, this is about writing. Okay? I think I have a good handle of research, but writing, and that's a good thing about qualitative research, is that it offers ample opportunity to master writing. Quantitative, there's good, well-written and poorly written quantitative research, but the scope for mastery is wider in qualitative research. So master all the aspects of the craft: data collection, data analysis, framing, writing, revising. Many opportunities to display craft. And for a craftsperson, that's great, right? You want the new cases with strange and dramatic qualities. You don't want the boring, you want opportunities to express mastery. Master all aspects of the craft: data collection, data analysis, framing, reading, outlining, but also writing. And finally, a craftsperson is their own biggest critic, but no one but a craftsperson can really be also their own supporter. Because there are small things that are small papers that are massive achievements. And there are, great papers, well published, where you feel that you didn't have a lot of opportunity to express. My AMR piece, for example, to express your skill. So only you know. Only I know now you know as well, but only I know this MJ Revisor Samhita I was able to pull through. I tried to explain it in the launch video, but only I know that the book that I launched recently I wrote it because I set up myself a challenge about how to write a specific type of book. And I did get a message from someone about that book that just made writing the book worth it, because it was someone that recognized the craftsmanship that is in that book. I'll be immodest and say that somebody that recognizes the difference between a white belt and a black belt doing the white belt form in Taekwondo. And yes, that felt nice, but ultimately, as a craftsperson, you are the only person who knows what work is the application of skill and what work is not. So I have one of my MSQ pieces is on this sort of curation of papers. Was I unhappy about that? No, but did I feel, but not as happy as when I pulled off this revise and resubmit once the paper was rejected, or even publishing my first paper in MS Quarterly. That was a tough one. That was an expression of skill, that's for sure. That's it. So I wanted to share with you this perspective. I'll just recap at the end. Papers, for craftsperson, papers are an expression of skill, and you pick up projects that allow you to express skill, not others. You combine these high art top publications with smaller papers that allow you to express your mastery of the basics. You focus on mastering all aspects of the craft: data collection, data analysis, framing, writing. And you rely on yourself alone to celebrate and recognize mastery of your skills. For me, it is a journey that is definitely worth taking, and I feel lucky and privileged to be able to take. I have given back to junior scholars as much as I could. I have helped people in their careers with my craft, and I am happy for that. It allows me to repay a little bit of the privilege that I know that I benefit from. To finish, I want to finish with a quote from Sherlock Holmes. Because although we're the only judges of our craft, I want to share with you the feeling of the appreciation of our craft. And the first time I got it in my life, my first paper was written in 1998. So 23 years that I've been writing. I've never stopped writing. 23 years. And only once, and it was this small comment to my book, did I get an external validation of my craft that I accepted. I have gotten my own validation, but an external validation of my craft that I accepted. And there's this beautiful passage in a really nice story from Sherlock Holmes, of course, The Adventure of the Six Napoleons. And I really encourage you to watch the Granada, so the 1980s episode of this story, because it's brilliantly acted by Jeremy Brett. But nevertheless, I wanted to read you that passage to share with you what it feels when you get recognition for your work that rings true to you as a craftsperson. Okay, so I'll read that for you, and we'll end the stream here. It is Lestrade, the detective, that takes credit for all of Holmes's case speaking. And he says, "I've seen you handle a good many cases, Mr. Holmes, but I don't know that I ever knew a more workmanlike one than that. We're not jealous of you at Scotland Yard. No, sir, we are proud of you, and if you come down tomorrow, there's not a man from the oldest inspector to the youngest constable who wouldn't be glad to shake you by the hand." "Thank you," said Holmes. "Thank you." And as he turned away, it seemed to me, says Watson, that he was more nearly moved by the softer human emotions than I had ever seen him. A moment later, he was the cold and practical thinker once more. "Put the pearl in the safe, Watson," said he, "and get out the papers of the Count Singleton forgery case. Goodbye, Lestrade. If any little problem comes your way, I shall be happy, if I can, to give you a hint or two as to its solution." Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.